we are here as a team from the Graphic Communications Group Limited, trying to conduct an interview with you, having been nominated to this very high position as the running mate to the flag bearer of the NDC, Mr. John Dramani Mahama.
Right.
And if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, growing up, what was it like growing up?
Growing up, I had siblings, I had cousins. I grew up in a home where everyone was encouraged to do their best. I didn't grow up in a home where there was discrimination about what girls could do or boys could do. We all went to school. We all played the same games. There was a field in front of our house. My father put football posts there. We played netball there, we played football there, the boys and the girls. And in fact, even my younger fathers and older cousins, when they came home on holidays, they all joined. So it was very, very relaxing. My father himself loved music a lot. So, and he loved people, he loved having people around. So I remember that on Saturdays especially, there'll be a lot of food, there'll be a lot of drinks, and many people will come around. And so these are some of the memories that I have. I have very good memories with my siblings, who I love absolutely. You know, growing up as siblings, we all did all the things that children did. Sometimes disagreeing and so on, fighting, but not fighting as in killing each other. No, there was none of that. But I have very fond memories of my childhood. I think I had a very good one, and I'm very grateful to my parents. I went to boarding school early. In fact, I think that my parents spent more on us, the girls, than they did on the boys. I made friends also in school, and in short, I think I didn't have any tragedies in my childhood. Maybe even what could have been a tragedy finally didn't end up that way. So it was a very good experience.
Okay. And then, Madam, was your father actually involved in politics?
Oh no, my father was a senior civil servant who wanted the best for his children. No, he wasn't a politician.
Oh, okay.
No.
And what about yourself? Were you ever
interested?
interested?
I didn't ask if my mother was also a politician.
Okay, maybe.
No, it's okay. I'm just teasing you.
Yes,
I'm just teasing you. No,
So,
my father was a senior civil servant, as I have said. My mother was a seamstress.
Okay.
Very, very intelligent woman, and her story in itself was something that I find very motivating.
Okay.
You know, maybe when you have time to read my memoirs, you'll get all the details there. Yes, but my father wasn't a politician.
Oh, okay. Okay. And what was your first reaction when the news about you being nominated to the position of running mate reached? How did you feel? How was your immediate response?
You see, I had been informed maybe a couple of days, about a week or so before the announcement, that a couple of us were being considered. So it's a couple of you, and it can be anyone. And especially when this is the kind of position you don't apply for, you don't interview for, you know, so it is just somebody nominating you. So when the announcement actually came, and I felt that it was only when it is actually announced that you know, otherwise you don't know, regardless what people are saying or not saying. But when that moment came, I remember going very quiet. I went very, very quiet, entering into my own self and soul and praying for support. Yeah.
That's good to know. Madam, you are an educationist. What are your plans for Ghana's education system, and particularly for girls?
When we say the education system,
Generally,
it's a very, very broad thing. It begins from the KG through primary to the first half of the first half of secondary education, which is the junior high school, and then to the second half, which is the senior high school. Then you move on even at the terrain of the secondary level, you also have technical schools, you have apprenticeships. Then move on to polytechnics, universities, colleges of education, nursing training, so many levels of training according to the needs of the country. So the system is never about one level. You need to learn to connect the threads. And I keep using the image of a chain. We know a chain is as strong as its weakest link. So each one must connect to the other, and each must be made strong, so that the final product is useful, it is strong, it is applicable to where we think the country should go. So asking about the plans, we started paying attention to technical education in our previous life, because we cannot keep hanging our economy on primary commodities forever. Especially if you read some of the reports, World Bank reports, IMF and so on, and they keep telling us that, for the next couple of years, the prices of primary commodities will fall. You must set up. Because in the first place, you don't have a strong voice in how much you sell your produce for. And in the same vein, you also don't have a strong voice in how much you pay for the finished product. So these are things for any economist to be very worried about, and for all of us to be very worried about. That either input or output, where is your voice, where is your strength? So then what can you do? One of the things you can do is to strengthen technical education. We shouldn't be happy with low level and middle level. Meanwhile, you are importing things that high level people have done. And if you have faith in your own youth, as I do, and you know their capability, sometimes the same Ghanaians who go and work in those places and bring the things out. So what is missing here? What do we need to do? So you can cut down on your importation, you can start to be self-sufficient, you can add value to your primary commodities, you can diversify your economy. It also implies diversifying your education, because this is where you are training the people. You see, so the emphasis on technical vocational education, very, very complex, very, very broad, was very important. So going on, for example, to isolate 13 technical schools for serious intervention, as in human auditing, as in equipment auditing, as in library auditing, all of the auditing that you need to do in order to raise the level of performance. You begin with the teachers, the tutors. What's their background? What do you need to do to support them? When was the last time they got any encouragement? How about scholarships? How about exposure? And we did all that hard work, and I'm very happy that we did that, because it's very important. And then also straightening the path of the technical student to as high as he can also go. Why is it that, you see, when a child says, I want to be a doctor, and he's in class 2, it doesn't matter that he doesn't end up as a doctor. That's not what's important. What's important, I think, is that he knows there's a possibility. That possibility in itself can be motivation. But if he says, I want to be carpenter, even the parents will get angry. Why? Because they know the child is not going far. So what is stopping this child from going far? Why can't the carpenter also end up at a university? How about the mason? How about the plumber? How about the fashion designer? So you need to open the doors. You need to create the paths for the best in everybody to come out to the highest level. So turning the polytechnics into technical universities was not a cup of tea. I remember lots of people who didn't quite follow said, we are turning everything into the other universities, but our documents were up for reading. And anyone who cares, can see exactly what we were doing. And that is why we spent a lot of money raising profile of some of the lecturers. We spent a lot of money re-equipping the technical schools, the polytechnics. I went around all of them. I visited many of the labs, and the heartbreaking things were at the technical schools, they tell you this is our workshop.
Yeah, labs.
You see the table there tied and that machine that nobody has ever turned. Then you ask yourself, so this child in this school, what is he coming out with? You see? So you need to change things there. And we did as much as we could. So these are some of the plans going forward. We need to diversify the secondary level and be serious about it.
Okay.
If all our intervention, all our support, all the glamour is going to the grammar schools, then, you know, we've all been children before. That's where we'll go. And how about the nation? How about the one who wants to go to technical school? Who says that the highest he should get to is HND, which is good, which is important. But assuming he has the capacity, assuming he has the interest to continue, why have you sealed that? You know, so you need to open the doors for many more people to self-actualize. Because when they do that, they inure to the economy, they inure to themselves, it raises their level of confidence like everybody else.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And then the free SHS.
What we did, I'll talk about what we did.
Yes.
What we did was to begin with the progressively free, as the Constitution says. You see, we have a high birth rate in this country. So we have a very youthful bulge. We can turn it into an advantage, and I think it's advantageous. When you know that, you should know where your resources should go. Okay, in some countries it's the opposite. The youth are not even there. Their birth rate is very low. So if you go to their classroom and there are 12 children, don't think that's the ideal. It's a question of the methodology that you use to reach whether many children or a few children. So, you know, having said all of that, you need to be very mindful, or we try to target. Yes, you know, I wish too that I never paid fees. And maybe somebody decides to refund everything I've ever paid, but we didn't think then that that was the way to go. Because we knew, again from the statistics, if you look at the WAEC results, you could tell that many children, even by our own admission, or by our own standard rather, that they qualify to go to secondary schools, were not going. So you need to do the research and find out why are they not going. Even at the university, you see that the student has beautiful grades, has not shown up. And we used to assume, oh, maybe he's gone to another university. Until some of us said, no. You know, when they are applying, they send the EMS envelope and so on. Write back and find out, why is this student? It was amazing, some of the things we found. Okay, so coming back to the SHS, we thought we should target.
Okay.
And we started with the day schools because on the average, our research showed that on the average, there was a certain type of student who went to the day school, to the government day schools. Okay. So we started with them. A lot of them needed more help. If you can, and our argument is that, listen, if you cannot afford to buy the trunk and the chop box and the provisions, that wasn't a good reason why the child shouldn't go to secondary school. So we had all this backlog of children. We thought then if you make it free, you may make it free for a few. Because we expected the structures to remain, the standards to be maintained and even improved. Okay? So that was why we said, okay, if this is going to happen and you have a youthful bulge, you must build more schools.
Okay.
And you must build them in a certain way. As I said, we've all been young before.
Sure.
You go to the school, the lawns are manicured, the place is beautiful. You already associate success with it. If you go to another school and it's not the same, you may feel even your father doesn't like you. And maybe that's why he brought you here. School, yeah. You already don't feel, you don't warm up to this place. So let's make the day schools as beautiful. And not only that, put in the equipment that the schools that do well have. So in our e-blocks, in fact, we had labs that some of the top schools didn't have. Those from tech will come and tell you we had better labs there than they had at the university. And I said, then better for you. It means that the students will come to the university even better prepared, and that makes your work easy. and makes it easy also for them to make the transition from secondary to tertiary not so abrupt. So we decided that we'll do the progressively free, we'll target. So you notice that there were many children who had even sandals. You see, we forget that a pair of shoes can be a reason why somebody is not in school.
Yeah, sure.
Or the uniform, or the bag, or the supplies. We forget that. But that is real. And we didn't think that these are good reasons why somebody should not be in school. Who knows whose capability? Until you've given that person a chance, you wouldn't know. So we tried to target and do it progressively. We needed the buildings, we needed the teachers, we needed the books, we needed the labs, we needed the equipment, we needed the libraries. So that is what we tried to do. And going forward, we will complete the buildings. You know, there are so many things that need to be put right, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Madam. The school feeding program.
School feeding program. You know, the school feeding program started as a world food program. And I think that was when His Excellency John Dramani, our former president, I think was able to halve poverty and was recognized. When I moved to the ministry, okay, let me step back a bit. I remember going to one of the earliest schools I went to, just around, and I went to the headmaster's office, and I looked at his timetable, and I asked, so when do the children eat? And it wasn't on the timetable, and I panicked. Okay, we can go into that, it will take too much time.
Yeah, okay.
But I thought that, no, but this should be timed. And who also does the menu? Is it the same for the KG people? Is it the same for upper primary people? Because they have different needs. So there are many things that we can all work at. But the school feeding program itself has come to stay. It is not something bad, you know, especially, see, if you consider the lives of people in the rural areas. They go to the farm very early. Okay, maybe 5 or so, they are gone. The child will come to school about 7 or so. Has he eaten or not? I'm sure, I'm not saying, no parent is irresponsible. They may have left their food. Whether they've eaten it or not, we don't know. But if there's a place for a nutritious meal for a child to have, there cannot be anything wrong with that. So it is something that is useful. What I wish is that we will also look at the areas where there's intermittent hunger.
Okay.
Okay, you know, the Catholic Relief Fund started something, and what they did was to encourage students, children to be in school and give food to the parents. So maybe going forward, we can look at other models. But right now, it's not a bad idea at all. We just need to make things, especially I've seen many places where the women cook near the school, and I feel these environments can be improved for the cooks themselves, for the sake of the children, and for other reasons too. But you know, we can do that. We may get to a level like other countries, especially the Asian countries, where these are done in factories and they just brought packaged to the children to eat. We are not there yet, but we can improve what we are doing. I don't know where they started and ended up in the factory. Yeah.
So, Prof, what are your plans for Ghanaian women in terms of empowering them?
When we were crafting our manifesto, we went around, you know, spoke with many people in the market, out of them, in the offices, in the hospitals, name it. Because our flag bearers' feeling, which we all shared, was that the manifesto is done for the people. And if that's the case, where are their voices in the crafting of the manifesto? What are their needs? Why do, you know, I keep saying that doing a manifesto would have been easy. Get a couple of people in a hotel for a couple of months. They can do something nice for you. But what does it mean in real terms? How does that thing speak to my need if you never came and spoke with me? So asking about plans for women, we can begin with a girl.
Okay.
Okay? Find ways to make this girl go to school, stay in school, move up. So what are the barriers that prevent girls from going to school, from staying in school, from moving up? There are many. Sometimes it is the mother's or the parents' economic activity. Okay, that makes it difficult for them to do that. And I don't think it's a matter of bringing laws and sending the parents to prison. No, you need to understand them. So in our previous life, we encouraged and even did a policy on the complementary basic education. The child minds the cattle graze in the morning. But in the afternoon, what does he do? So if he's not coming in the morning and in the afternoon, his colleagues have closed, they can learn something, and it was going very well. I attended some of the classes, and maybe because we also did it in the Ghanaian language, or because the kids were a bit more mature, but there are things that we can ask researchers to help us to truly identify. It was so exciting. But then you know that you are reducing your percentage of illiteracy, you are raising the literacy and numeracy levels, which are important for all of us. So talking about the girl, there's a way in which our bodies function because we are girls. And if you look, this research has been done in many countries. It's mirrored what we had also seen. You go to the school and just get the register and look at the girls section. They also do boys and girls. You do that. Very basic finding. And you notice that the absences are more among the girls. And you want to find out why. Is it because they are selling? Is it because of this? Is it because of that? But you see, when anything happens consistently, then there's a pattern, then there's a logic behind it, and you can trap that logic and then deal with the problem. So every month at a certain time she doesn't come. What is the problem? At the end of, if the term is 12 weeks, 3 months, and she must miss a week out of every month, that's what? 25% of the time gone. So in the end, if you say the girls are not doing well, is it because you think they can't do well? And what will it take to remove this problem? So when we were building the secondary schools, in fact, we turned the whole thing into a project. We were building some, we were renovating some, we were doing quality assurance in others. We're also providing scholarships for needy children. And we said the majority should be girls. So we said that, if the boy is getting, let's say, 10 cedis, make the girls, let's say, 12, and encourage her to use the 12 cedis to buy the wherewithal to take care of her body, to take care of that time of the month so she doesn't miss schools. Hell broke loose in this country. The insults, the cartoons, the press had a field day. And I thought that some of the press, let me qualify that, it's not everybody. And I thought that we had more respect for our daughters than that. How do you think those girls felt? Or is it because we could afford them for our daughters, we thought this is not something any government should do? And do you know how many countries how many embassies in this country came to my office, asked what this was about, made notes, and are implementing? You go to certain countries now, there's a box in every shop, and they label the sanitary pads for poor girls. So you're changing. So they're all making an effort. In other countries, the government puts it in this budget and actually supplies. Retention of girls has improved, progression of girls has improved. Otherwise, we don't see many girls in tertiary education. Should it end there? Should it end there? Yeah, you don't see them. So what do you want to do about that? Do you think it's important that you see them up there? How will they get there if they don't get the support? And then more importantly, or equally importantly, is to ask yourself, what is it that keeps some of the girls away from the classroom? And you chance on pedagogy. So when we did the T-TEL, an area we wanted to emphasize, or we emphasized, was a gender responsive strategy. Okay, sometimes the teacher doesn't mean any harm, but you may not know that the way you've asked a boy a question in a mixed class, or the way you've asked a girl a question in a mixed environment may affect them in certain ways that the teacher didn't intend that to happen. So you need to raise your sensitivity to all of these. In fact, there was a research, an old one, done in the US, and I think it's called the Chile Classroom or so. Also at that time, trying to find out, so what is it that prevents girls from being here? You know, the menstruation thing I talked about, the boys, I mean, what do they know? What do they care? And if the headmaster is also male, the teachers are male and so on, they may take certain decisions. Okay, so that if, for example, an NGO is building a school and builds a 6-classroom block, no headmaster's office, no washroom, no water, nothing, what will the girl be doing in school at that time? So providing water, you know, all of these add up to the plans for girls. Okay. Then of course you move up and other needs also follow. Okay. And building their confidence is important. Okay. Mentoring is very important. Supporting them to move up is important. Affirmative action is important. But at the same time, also putting the structures for the girls to come up on their own steam, because we know they can. We know they are beyond capable. So you need to identify the stumbling blocks, remove them, so that they can also be the best they can be. In the market, I keep saying that, you know, if you go to any market, the majority are women. Isn't that the case? That is true. The market is also an office for women. I'm sure we've all seen too often markets that are just like a muddy place. You've seen that. If you have some money, you buy an umbrella. If you don't, you use your akatado over your head. For how long has this gone on? How many washrooms are near markets? Or daycares? Where do they leave their children? We've seen all this. When it rains, you can't go to the market. You cannot go to the market, but you can go to your office. She will make no business that day. Doesn't bother us how she's going to feed her children. So if you have a government that is building a market like KJTIA, you see a government or a party that respects women. Why should we build nice big offices and forget that women also need offices where they can function regardless of the weather? Which party does that? Which party built Kotokraba? And you go, I lived in Cape Coast, for the majority of my life. I know what Kotokraba was like, and I know what it is like now. And it's just beautiful to behold. So all along, we didn't know. So you see, this tells you what is possible for women. They sell in the market. Is that a crime? So during the rainy season, hardly does anything happen. So that week, and you know how much profit do they make in a week, even when they are there all the time? So you see the respect for them. If you are increasing water supply, you are helping women. Because we fetch the water, don't we?
We do.
Yes.
We do.
We do. So it is support for the whole community, of course, but you are also reducing our chores by bringing us water. So if there's no water, we are the ones who suffer. And you are not helping the women. Because we're spending inordinate amounts of time going to fetch the water. The same for fuel if there's no electricity. You know, so many of these interventions, I think, eventually help women a lot in lessening our burdens. If there's a CHIPS compound close by, we are the ones who normally carry the baby. The men too try. You know, I'm not saying they don't do anything. That's not true. They try. All I'm saying is that they should try even more. Okay, so we are the ones who are likely to hold that baby with a high temperature on our breast or on her shoulder all night. Assuming there's a CHIPS compound close by. Instead of waiting for the dawn to break so you can take 4 different trotros to go to the hospital, you could just go there, check the baby's temperature, get some drops put on her tongue to bring down the temperature so she can sleep, and then the following day you see what to do. So you see how all these interventions help everybody, but in a way they help women more. So going forward, doing the 4-month maternity leave is not a joke. We all know very well that as a professional woman or as a woman, having a child is a big deal. What happens? You check in your own graphic, you may see what I've seen in other places, that currently it's 3 months, 6 weeks before and 6 weeks after. That's the ideal situation, that's the average situation. There's no average situation with childbirth. Some decide when they want to come, which is okay. But the point I'm making is that hardly, very hardly will any woman take that leave 6 weeks before the baby arrives. Sometimes 2 days before time. And why do they do that? Because they need the time. And sometimes they take their leave, or the whole year they will not go on leave, so they can save that time for when they deliver. What is the implication of this? Not only so that they have enough time to recover, they need time for the baby to get a bit strong so you can leave them with somebody else. So you see, the danger with this is that because she has not rested the whole year, because she's saving her leave for this period, because she's been growing a baby in her body, by the time she enters that delivery room, that body is already tired. Isn't it? She's already exhausted for this hard work called delivery. Why are we, so we come and sit back and talk about infant mortality and maternal mortality. Is that enough? Is that enough? So when people are saying, oh, people will not employ them because, I said, listen, the employer will have a more dedicated and ready worker who is strong, whose mind is not at home wondering what the baby is eating because she's supposed to be breastfeeding, and so on and so forth. When we were hit with COVID, we saw that a lot of us could work from home. If nothing at all, we learned that. So it's a very, very serious decision we have taken to implement in the interest of women. So that is also one thing that will work in the interest of some women. If you give me 4 months maternity leave, what will I do with it? But for another woman, it's very important. Especially, and then the 1 week for the guys, people think it's fun. No. You know, if I must leave my wife in the hospital and go to work, is that gentleman working? He's not concentrating. No, what really productive work are you getting out of a gentleman whose wife is delivering? Or who may call and say, oh, I left this thing, please get it from home for me. You know, it's not happening. Let him have the time off. Let him concentrate on his family. And more importantly, let him also bond with his newborn baby. You see, we may not make big billboards about how a man is bonding with a baby, but politics is about human development. And we should never, never lose sight of it. It's about the human person at the center of the pie charts and the graphs and all of that. It's about the quality of life that that person leads. So you move on to your market women, the fishmongers and the farmers who never have any insurance. Do they also matter? Of course they matter. We'll all complain about how our pension is small and how it is not coming, but we have something. The others who have nothing, they also matter. So you see, the interventions for women will apply to different women at different stages of their lives. So these are some of them.
Can you share with us what really accounts for this nomination to this very high position in this very great party?
First of all, let me thank His Excellency John Dramani Mahama for the decision. It was his decision to make, and he made it, and the party supported it. So I want to thank him, and I want to very sincerely thank the party too for the acceptance. And when I say the party, I mean the hierarchy. I also mean everybody, regardless the position they are in. And I want to thank the larger public too. Okay. The level of support. We've been around the country doing our tours, our regional tours. It's been overwhelming. And I'm very, very, very grateful. And I'm hoping that all this enthusiasm and approval will turn into votes so that we can implement some of the things that are in their manifesto that I've summed up for you. So I'm very grateful. In terms of what accounts, I cannot go into all the details because I wouldn't know. Okay? All I know is that we've worked before. Me at the ministry, him at the presidency. And all I know is that education was very, very important for him. And he was always very, very interested in those who were not in the net. He was interested in the children who were not in school. He was interested in the dropping numbers of girls. He was interested in diversifying the economy, and that went to diversifying our education. And I think that at that time, we got on quite well. Even when I had made suggestions that I knew were not in the manifesto, but he saw that these were suggestions that will help the country, he just gave me approval that we could go ahead and do that. So we bonded quite well at that level, and I'm praying and hoping, and I have every confidence that same will happen going forward by God's grace.
Okay. Yes. And Prof, would you say that your acceptance to serve in this very high position reflects the fact that Ghanaian women are ready to play politics in high place?
You see, when you say Ghanaian women again, we are many things. We are also ordinary people. We also have our hopes, we also have our fears, we also have our approvals, we also have our petty, like all human beings, like the guys too, But I think that a lot of decisions come from seeing that something is possible. So I think that the possibility that this nomination signifies is what is important. That, so this is possible. Because all along, it hasn't happened that way. Yes, it happened at different levels and at different parties. Let me admit that. Right now, we have women presidential aspirants, so it's not that new. But what is new is that a major party that is very likely to come back into power has made this decision. That is what makes it so novel. Okay, so it sends a message out there. And I keep saying that this is also a chance for all of us to change the face of our politics, to ask ourselves what politics is about.
Okay.
If it is about dealing with the problems the country has, then the name calling and the insults and, how does that build a country? What country move forward because they know how to insult people? Name one. There's none. They all went forward because they had long-term plans, they stuck with them, they encouraged, they criticized, they held their people to account. So that this is public office. And you are there to play a role. And you play to the best of your ability. That the insults and the name calling and the filthy language should have no place in politics. As I said, we've been driving around the country. And you see the conditions in which people are living, and you ask yourself, should this be a priority for us? Should we be talking about this? Should we be writing about this? Do these people also matter? You drive past and you see women with pans on their heads going to fetch water, and you are in a car and you are complaining about the dust. What should they complain about? And you see them walking many, sometimes miles, and you see the water they are fetching. And you are a politician. This should matter to you. This is what the power that this person has given you should be returned to him or her to empower her life, to empower his life, to reduce his burdens. It's not about raising our shoulders or being haughty. It's not about looking down on people. That should not be defined as politics. It's not about just shooting your mouth and insulting anybody who comes your way. Is that what will give that person water? Is that what will give that person a good market to operate in? Is that what will give that person a good hospital to attend? Or give hope to his or her children? We are lower middle level or upper middle level. We have these problems. And these are the things that I think should occupy our attention as politicians, and not running others down, making it so unattractive. It's as if you're a politician, then you don't even respect people. I mean, what is that? When it's people who gave you that opportunity to go and sit there in the first place? No, things will have to change. Oh, yes.
So would you say it's taken us, Ghanaian women, such a longer period in getting on board?
Yes. You see, when you look at our history in politics, we saw what Kwame Nkrumah did. But we also saw what the women did in his party. It is there. Look at the women's wings, even of the current parties. They work a lot. But if somebody comes and says that the appointment of a woman shows disrespect, it means that that person has no plans, has no respect for the women in his own party, and has no plans to raise them up. And it's up to the people in those parties to pay attention. You see? So why wouldn't it take women a long time? If that's the thinking of the hierarchy, that to put a woman in a position as a vice presidential candidate is to disrespect. Where will the women in his own party get to? How far will they go? Because he's betrayed too much. He's betrayed the attitude of his party to women. He has not, unlike NDC and John Dramani Mahama, they have respected women. It's not just Naana. They have respected women. They have demonstrated we are capable. They have shown trust in us. And they have shown confidence in us. So the choice is in our hands.
Prof, what were your greatest fears in accepting this position and role?
Maybe I'll go back to other positions I've expected.
Okay.
In any position, Vice Chancellor, President of FAWE, whatever, member of the Global Education Monitoring Report of UNESCO, I'm a member. And in all of these high positions, you know very well that to get 100% support is impossible. You won't get that. You won't get that from women, you won't get that. It's not natural. So you go very much aware that this is a reality. So what has been the strategy all along? If it's 70% supporting you, hold them. And you try to bring some of the 30% also along. In fact, you pay attention to them too. You find out what their fears are, what their anxieties are. And once they see that their own fears are being reduced, then you see that they're also slowly but surely coming around. You may get 5% or so who, it's like preaching to the choir. That is also okay, but you don't go after them. You don't go harassing them because of the position they've taken. As a scholar, in scholarship, we are more interested in those who disagree with us than those who agree with us. So that is what you take through life. You find out what's the reason. For all you know, these are the people you can learn from. So don't dismiss anybody. You embrace everybody. Reach out to as many people as possible. And sometimes they will surprise you. Yeah. So I know, answering your question directly, I know it's a huge responsibility. And it's not like being in the ministry. Being in the ministry, it was just me and education, even though it was a big responsibility, because in Ghana, the Minister for Education is in charge from preschool to the research institutes.
Okay.
And in terms of public sector workers in this country, about 60% are in education. So it's a huge, huge responsibility. But if you become, if by God's grace you become vice president, it's not ministry anymore.
Yeah, sure.
You are spreading yourself much, much wider. And that's why you need goodwill, you need prayers.
Okay.
You need to be sober, you need to listen, you need to be reflective, and you need to work with people even more than you used to do. Going back at the university, it was just me and UCC. Maybe sometimes the other universities too, but my major responsibility was one university. So it looks like it's a ripple that is, from the middle opening, that's the image that also always comes to my mind. And I know that each requires building up, or rather building on the previous strategies to make sure that you can do the best you can. So it's not a step I plan to take by myself. You don't do that. You take it with people. So you can see from our manifesto that there are no huge earth-shaking things in it. And that taught me a big lesson. And even doing the regional campaign, sitting down, talking to market queens, talking to people selling in the streets, and meeting all manner of people, that Ghanaians are not even asking for the moon. They're not asking for the moon. They are asking for jobs. They are asking for peace. They are asking for the absence of fear. They are asking to get on with their lives. They are asking to be trained. These are things that the government, that we are very happy to hear, and which we've put in our manifesto.
Yeah, and thank you, Prof. What would you say are the major things that you are bringing on board?
Since I'm going to be by God's grace, since I will be in the place where the decisions are made, I'll be very sensitive about how those decisions impact women, how those decisions are going to benefit women. Of course, how the decisions will affect everybody in the first place, but be mindful. And I always use the example of, let's say all of us in this room own a business, and there's profit. And the people deciding where the profit should go are all males. What do you think they'll decide where the corporate social responsibility should go? Maybe football, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with football. I support anything that brings people together. In football, do we see politics and so on? No, So it's a very good example. There's nothing wrong with it. But if there were 10 men and 4 women, and some of the women go to the market, maybe they'll also say, oh, how about a few bags of cement to go and, do the drains and just, tidy up the floor, or raise the roof, or provide washrooms. Do you get it? So the football and the market put together, everybody is happy. So the presence of women at decision-making tables is very important.
Thanks, Prof. How do we enhance good governance in our country?
I think, number one, you need the independence of the institutions. The institutions must function and function well. We need to strengthen our institutions to do their work and do the work well. We need to stay away from political interference in the running of these institutions. If the president must appoint that person That is what the rules say. But that doesn't mean that after the person has been appointed, he shouldn't do independent work. And I think that that will rather help the government if the person is given the space and the support to do his work. That's number one. Number two is to hold people to account. When do we go to work? When do we close? All these things are important. So all of us must be held accountable. You know, if the establishment must start work at 8 and they keep starting at 10, and instead of closing at 5, they keep closing at 4 or 3, you know, none of us is helping. So if we accept that we can do better in our country, everybody can do well and better wherever they are. We must make merit count. We must make hard work count. We must make commitment count for something. Okay? And we must apply the rules evenly. Once that is done, people get confidence. Okay? So I think these are all things in governance that we need to pay attention to.
Prof, we have between 6 and 7 weeks to have our elections. What advice would you give to the political actors?
We've had elections in this country before. Everything should be transparent. When there's no transparency, then you give room, as the saying goes, for somebody to use the excuse of Christmas to have biscuits.
Chicken.
So communication is very important. Transparency is very important. Public education is very important. Collaboration is very important. That way, we've had elections before, people have won, people have lost. Yes, nobody celebrates their loss, but we have accepted either way. And this is because things have been transparent, people have understood, and so those who didn't understand, they knew or they decided how to seek redress. So this, for me, is very important. Because you see, that is how the peace will be sustained. We shouldn't have things like you are going to register and there's a military there. Somebody sees the military is scared and will not even come and register. That cannot be democratic. So all those things that went wrong in the past, we should correct them, and going forward, we need peace in this country.
Thank you, Prof. Why must we vote for the NDC? And if there is just one reason why the NDC should be voted into power, what would that be?
I think it will be for development. Politics is about development. It's about having access to resources to build the country up. I keep referring to the tours we are making, and you'll see the needs of the country. Everybody is screaming for roads. We know the party that comes and builds roads, not only because elections are near. We know the party that comes and extends electricity, the party that comes and is interested in people who don't have water, having water. We know the NDC is a party that comes and builds secondary schools and builds hospitals. These are all things we need more of, and that is why voting for the NDC is the way to go.
Thank you very much, Prof. If there's any message you want to give to Ghanaians in general to round up the discussion.
Oh no, actually my message is that we need peace in this country. You know, destroying things is very easy. We are sitting in this office. If you bring a bulldozer here and give it a couple of hours, it will be a rubble. I'm not sure if it is possible to put this building up in the same, space and at the same time as you can destroy it. So what we have, we need to preserve, and we need to add to it. And this will happen when we have peace. So the need for peace should be paramount to us. Insults don't build countries. Running people down doesn't build a country. Calling people's names, false accusations don't build countries. It is hard work. It is having a plan. It is having an implementation plan you are not afraid to review. It is knowing this is the way I decided to go, but it's not right. And having the humility to accept that, no, I should rather have gone the other way. That is what will build our country. The haughtiness will not build it. The arrogance will not build it. Learning to listen to each other, tolerating views that we don't even like, will build this country. Because we can't all think the same way about the same thing, and we don't have to. The diversity is a source of strength. We should respect that. Democracy is about people. We should put that at the center of everything we do. Thank you.